Hey everyone, how's it going? So, if you played Pokemon Red, Blue, or Yellow as a kid like I did, Saffron City was so mysterious. You try to enter and the guard says that they're thirsty. As a kid, I had no idea what to do, but obviously nowadays we do know what has to be done. When you get to Celadon City, you go to the Pokemart and you need to go to the roof, past where the elevator takes you. On the roof there's a vending machine, you can buy any of the 3 drinks, and if you walk past the guard with the drink in your inventory, the guard will take the drink and will let you pass from then on, and you can access Saffron City easy peasy. Or at least it was until FireRed and Leafgreen came out. For the most part, these games are pretty much identical to Red and Blue in terms of plot points and story progression, and yet a major thing was changed here. If you try to go and give the guards one of those drinks, they won't accept it. How do you get through? I was so confused. It's only by talking to every NPC that I was able to find one in this building in Celadon City that gives you a tea, a key item, and it is this tea that quenches the guard's thirst, allowing you to pass. Now, I was recently streaming FireRed and Leafgreen on my Twitch channel, and I mentioned how it's so bizarre to me, even 20 years later, why in the world they thought they needed to change that. Why would you introduce the tea? It just seemed to mess up older players who wouldn't think to do that. What purpose could it possibly serve? But first, a big thank you to my favorite game on the go, a game that there's no better time to get into as it's offering 2 legendary and 2 epic champions for free, the one and only Raid Shadow Legends. And speaking of awesome champions, one of the things I like best about Raid is how many champions the game has and the various mechanics you can use to customize the champions and build the perfect team for each battle. But if you thought the existing champions are cool, then you'll love Raid's newest global event, Alice's Adventure, which introduces 5 brand new legendary champions inspired by the classic tale of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Right now, you can get champions based on your favorite classic characters like Alice the Wanderer, the Cheshire Cat, the Mad Hatter, the Knave of Hearts, and the fearsome Queen of Hearts. To get Alice the Wanderer for free, all you need to do is log into Raid for 7 days in a row, and for the next 7 days, you'll get a ton of useful power-ups. Speaking of things that are useful, if you want some great gear, you can go and try and conquer the event dungeon where the Queen of Hearts will fight you over and over again. Defeating her gives you some really useful stuff. But wait, there's more. If you click on my link in the description or scan my QR code, you can get some amazing bonuses. Immediately, you'll get the epic champion Drake, and after reaching level 15, which doesn't take all that long, you'll get the epic champion TALLIA. Finally, after clicking the link, you can also use the promo Monkey King to get one of the best legendary champions in the game, Sung Wukong, but he's only available now till the end of February, so you should get on that. And finally, you can find me in the game under the name JRose11, and you can join my clan, the Tier Listers. I hope you join, and I'll see you on the battlefield. Well, one of my chatters, Mystic Leviathan, a longtime viewer, said that it was to prevent a soft lock. And I was just baffled, a soft lock? How in the heck could you get soft locked by a drink? But as we dug deeper and deeper, we realized there was a potential soft lock that exists in Red, Blue, and Yellow as a direct result of needing to buy this beverage. This isn't a soft lock I've ever heard of before, and considering the YouTuber Picasperi has covered all sorts of soft locks, I was surprised this had never occurred to most of us in chat. And so in today's video, I'm going to talk about how you could accidentally set up this soft lock, which might finally explain 21 years later why FireRed and Leafgreen introduced the tea. But before we begin, we probably should define what exactly a soft lock is. Although some of us are very familiar with the term, other people may have never heard of it before. In short, a soft lock is a situation within a game whereby the player is unable to progress the game any further. In this case, the player would be unable to get past the guard and enter Saffron City, unable to beat Sylph Company or receive the Marsh badge, and thus unable to proceed to the Elite Four, basically meaning your game is over, and the only way to actually get to the end would be starting your save file anew. This is unlike a hard lock where the game would crash and you physically can't play. You can move around, you can battle wild Pokemon, but no matter what you do, unless you use hacking or glitching or something, there is actually no way, if you set this up, to proceed any further, and thus you are locked. So now that we understand what a soft lock is, let's talk about how this soft lock occurs. And the best way to do so is by asking you a question. What would happen if you didn't have enough money to pay for even the cheapest beverage of freshwater? In most playthroughs, you should have plenty of money by the time you reach Celadon City, and this would never be a problem. But theoretically, you could actually run out of money due to the way red, blue, and yellow work. In order to illustrate how this potentially could have happened to gamers, I'm going to artificially set up these conditions myself intentionally, but theoretically this could have happened by accident. So the first thing we're going to do is battle every single trainer that we can. Since you don't need to access Saffron to get or use Surf, that means surfing around, battling all the trainers all around Cinnabar, beating Blaine, Koga, Erica, Lieutenant Surge, Misty, Brock, every single trainer. But that's not enough. You also need to collect every single item. Some of them are pretty obscurely hidden, other ones are easy to see, but you need to collect every single one of them. We then need to use, sell, or toss every single non-key item. There are certain items like PP Up and Moonstone, which if you sell them, don't give you any money, so they don't really matter. But once you've done this, in theory, you could be in a game state where there is no more money left for you to collect. There is no way to rebattle any trainers in red, blue, and yellow, and there are no items that respawn. Thus, whatever money you have on you right now is all the money you will have until you proceed to Saffron City. The next thing we're going to do, obviously, is to get rid of all our money. There are many ways you can do this. One of the easiest ways is just to buy a whole bunch of any items you want and just toss them all. If you want your money to be absolutely at zero, not that you need it to be, you just need it less than 200 Poké-Dollars, what you can do is deposit all your Pokemon, use something like an Electrode or anything with self-destruct or explosion, and just use it again and again. Every time you black out, you lose half your money, and eventually you will get your money to absolute zero. Now, you might be tempted to think that we have succeeded in setting up our soft lock. At this point in time, there are no trainers left to fight, no items left to pick up, and thus there are no more sources of money. And since there are no more sources of money and we don't have enough to buy a freshwater, we can never afford a freshwater, we can never enter Saffron, and we have soft locked ourselves. We can battle wild Pokemon, we can walk around, but we can never beat Pokemon Red, Blue, or Yellow. Or so you'd think. Because this soft lock isn't actually complete yet. There are still 3 ways you potentially could get out of this soft lock. The first is only applicable if you are playing Pokemon Blue version, and if you either have a Pokeball still on you, or have caught a Meowth. Meowth, via level up, can learn the move Payday. And every time you use Payday, even in a wild battle, you get just a little bit of money. If you use Payday enough times, eventually, you will get 200 Poké-Dollars, and you will be able to afford the fresh water, ending the soft lock. This one is pretty easy to get around, however. If you've already sold all your items, and you haven't caught a Meowth, or you're playing on a version of Pokemon like Red or Yellow where Meowth isn't catchable, then the soft lock is still in place. The other way you could break the soft lock is if you've taught a Pokemon the move Payday, which is obtainable on Route 12. Again, this one is pretty easy to control for. Either delete the move, release the Pokemon, or sell/toss Payday before you actually use it. Since it doesn't respawn, we once again seemingly find ourselves in a soft lock situation. Unable to progress any further, no way to get money, except there's one more way. The Game Corner. The coin case cannot be tossed, and it's a key item. Additionally, on the floor of the Game Corner, there are a whole bunch of coins. To my knowledge, there are 280 of those coins. While you cannot directly exchange coins for Pokédollars, what you can do is use those coins in the slot machine, and if you get enough coins, 3,300 to be exact, you can purchase TM23 Dragon Rage, which sells for money that you can use to buy a drink and break the soft lock. So what we're gonna have to do is collect all those coins in the game corner, go to a slot machine, and intentionally lose, which is actually harder than you think. But once we've used up every last coin, finally, the soft lock is complete. If for some reason you did this in your game of Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, there actually is no way to complete the game. I will put a couple caveats. If you resort to glitching, of course you can still beat the game. You can beat the game without ever leaving your house. And if you want to use another cartridge and trade, then you can break pretty much every Pokemon soft lock in existence. However, if you were like me as a kid and didn't have a way to trade and just had a cartridge and a Game Boy, this game would be completely unbeatable and would need to be reset from the beginning. And while from our perspective, years in the future, it's really cool to look at these mechanics and to see how we can break them in ways the developers didn't intend, for players back in the mid-90s, there's a way this could have happened. Sure, we're pretty good at Pokemon, but there were a lot of people, I mean, think of myself at 7, that weren't. It's theoretically possible they just didn't have any money, lost all the coins, are playing red or yellow version and got rid of Payday. That's actually a thing that could happen. I used to lose that much all the time. And so I could imagine real life people being in this situation, and perhaps someone at Game Freak heard about this, figured it out. I'm not sure. And thus, the T was invented. Since it's a key item just given to you, you don't need any money. And thus, even if you're in this same situation in FireRed Leafgreen, you can proceed to Saffron City, and you can still win. But wait a minute, there's a whole bunch of video left. What are you not telling us? What plot twist is about to happen? Well, I looked deep into this soft lock, and you know what I discovered when it came to FireRed and Leafgreen? You don't need the T. There is absolutely no way, within a single cartridge even, no glitches, no hacks, to soft lock the game in this way. You will always, always, always be able to proceed to Saffron City. Even if you intentionally and very deliberately try to soft lock yourself, there is a way out of it. And to be clear, when we're talking about soft locks, setting them up, yes, we're doing that intentionally, but we're still trying to get out of them. That's what makes a true soft lock. If I never hold a button, theoretically everywhere is a soft lock, right? At the end of the day, if we try to get out of the soft lock, can we? Well, let's see. In Generation 2, held items were introduced. Typically, we think of held items as stuff in competitive Pokemon that you would hold to give yourself an advantage. But another way held items can come into play is the fact that various wild Pokemon can hold items as well. Sometimes when you catch these Pokemon, you will get one of these items equipped to them, but there also are moves in the game that can steal those items and give them to you. The most famous of these moves is Thief, and it's available fairly early on. Instead of Mega Punch, in the second basement floor of Mount Moon, the second ladder, you get TM46 Thief, and a whole bunch of Pokemon can learn it. If you have a Pokemon with Thief, even if you've battled every trainer and taken every item, you can thief items off of various wild Pokemon which you can sell. So like with Payday, you're going to have to either toss Thief or teach over it. In Generation 3, not a single Pokemon learns Thief via level up, and thus, as long as you toss that TM, you're good in terms of Thief, but Thief is not the only move that can do this. There's also the move Covet. It's not available via TM, but Snorlax, of which there are 2 of, if you level them up to level 45, they will learn Covet, and because of that, you will break the soft lock. no worries, either faint both Snorlaxes, make sure you don't teach Covet or teach over it, or just release a Snorlax if you've already caught it. But that's not the only move, there's one more. Kadabra and Mr. Mime can learn the move Trick. And Trick, rather than taking your opponent's item, swaps items, which for our purposes does the exact same thing. It takes their item. Simple. Just release your Kadabra and have no more Pokeballs, teach over Trick. Same thing with Mr. Mime. So while there's a few more things we need to watch out for, maybe some Pokemon we need to release, overall, the fact there are held items and ways to steal them doesn't actually change all that much for us. It's just something we need to be aware of. Something that does change a lot for us is something we get in Vermilion City. This is a game changer and is the reason this soft lock is actually impossible in FireRed and Leafgreen. And trust me, I tried really hard to find a way to get around this. There isn't. The item in question is the Versus Seeker, and it allows you to rebattle trainers, which is game-changing. Part of why the red, blue, and yellow soft lock was so devastating is that since items can't respawn and there's no way to rebattle trainers, we can get to a game state where there is no other source of income. If you can just battle trainers whenever you want, how can you ever get to that game state? I mean, sure, you could maybe lose the battle, but like, come on. Your Pokemon are pretty decently leveled. They're not going to lose battles, and even if you release all your Pokemon and have just a low-level Pokemon, all you'd need to do is just level that Pokemon up against maybe the Metapod or Kakuna in Viridian Forest. It would be fine. Unless you did something very specific. Something you couldn't actually do in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. And something that you might think makes this soft lock still a thing, and thus justifying the switch from freshwater, lemonade, or soda pop to the tea. You see, what if we released all our Pokemon except one? But not just any Pokemon, a very specific Pokemon. In the power plant, you can catch Voltorb and Electrode, and these Pokemon do know self-destruct. Now, there are 3 other moves that are very useful, so even if you only have this Voltorb, you can still beat easy trainers and eventually get enough money. But starting in Generation 2, there are ways you can actually remove your moves. This NPC is known as the Move Deleter, and they are in Fuchsia City. And you can use them to remove all but one of your moves, and I think you know where this is going. We're going to remove all of our moves except for self-destruct. Since we tossed all our items, including TMs, there are no more moves that Voltorb can learn without leveling up further. The only HM it could learn is Flash, but it's not going to be able to level up at all. That is because self-destruct causes Voltorb to faint. But not only that, even if the trainer you're battling has only one Pokemon and you knock it out, the game will still count it as a loss and no money will be awarded. So that's it. There's an extra step. We need to erase all our Pokemon, we need to delete all our moves, but it seems like you were wrong, Jaros. There was a way to soft lock yourself and require the T. Because if you've battled every trainer, tossed every item, of course, removed all the coins from the equation, well then, if you were to somehow have a Voltorb, deleted all its moves except for self-destruct, there is no way to get to Saffron City and complete the game unless there was a free key item that you didn't need any money for. Case closed. Not. There's a way around this, and I want you to try and guess what it is. And no, it's not glitching, it's not trading. There is a way within this one save file to accumulate more money with this Voltorb. The answer is Damp. Damp is an ability that's pretty useless, at least competitively. It causes moves like Self-Destruct and Explosion to fail. Now, in theory, Damp could have been programmed differently. It could have been programmed where my Pokemon still faints, but their Pokemon is fine. And I don't think that would have been overpowered. But that's not how Damp works. How it works is when you select self-destruct, if a Pokemon with damp is out, it will say that damp prevents it from being used. Your Pokemon doesn't faint, and a power point is deducted. All you have to do is use up all your power points, and you're done. Sure, your Voltorb might be pretty weak. You might not be able to beat good trainers, but you surely can go back to Route 3 and battle some of those trainers again and again. They won't give you much money, but in no time you'll have enough for that fresh water. But hold on a second, J-Rose. What if we can't find a Pokemon that has damp? Most of them require surf. Well, unfortunately for you, hopeful viewer, we can find Pokemon with damp. Because the only way we could set up this soft lock is by getting to Fuchsia City. And you know what's in Fuchsia City? The Good Rod. And you know what can be caught with the Good Rod? That's right, Poliwag, which has a 50-50 chance of having damp. And if you get the Super Rod, still Poliwag, and now you get access to Psyduck. Since these are key items, there is no way to toss them. And since trainers can be battled again and again, and there is a way to remove power points, and thus, after 21 years of wondering why, we seem to have wound up right where we started, confused as to why the T exists, because due to the Versus Seeker, there just seems to be no way to soft lock ourselves. Case closed. Until I was editing this video. Because I remembered self-destruct isn't the only move that can cause me to faint. I didn't even remember this move was introduced in Generation 3, and I thought of editing out all the parts where I said the soft lock was impossible, but you know what? This is my faithful experience. I was so sure I explored every option, checked every box, every variable, and then Grimer appeared. Because in Generation 3, Grimer at level 53 can get the move Memento. Memento is a move that causes you to faint, but in exchange, the target loses 2 stages of attack and special attack. Unlike with Self-Destruct or Explosion, even if Memento were to fail, the user still does faint. So in this new soft lock scenario, we need to get ourselves a Grimer, or actually a Coughing, but let's stick with Grimer. We need to level it up to level 53, teach it Memento, go to Fuchsia, delete all our other moves, get rid of all our other Pokemon, all our items, make sure all the coins have been exhausted from the game corner. We have eliminated every last source of Poke income possible, and since we cannot use up our power points, we cannot rebattle trainers, we cannot win, it's over, right? No. J-Rose from even further in the future here. It's still not a soft lock. I found a way out of it. You don't need to battle anybody in FireRed and Leafgreen in order to make money. I'm really glad I caught this because I would have felt rather foolish since it is something I looked into back in 2017. Before I tell you what's about to happen, let's just remember what we're trying to do here. We're trying to answer the question whether it is possible, trying your very hardest, to have put yourself in a scenario where we don't have enough money to buy a fresh water which we need to access Saffron City. In order to answer this question, yes, we are intentionally sort of sabotaging ourselves just to see what a hypothetical game state could look like, one that, at least according to Mystic Leviathan, Game Freak might have wanted not to have happen. Right now, it seems like we have no other way of making money, since if for some reason you just had a Grimer or Coughing and deleted all moves except for Memento, well, then you can never win a battle, so you can't get money, if battles were the only way you could make money. Because starting in Generation 3, there are recurring items all over the place, including the undergrounds. This is something I was very confused by because in Red and Blue, there are items in set locations and I know where they are. I get them in every solo run. In FireRed and Leafgreen, they're randomly placed and there's a whole complicated system. But what's important is that these items have a chance to respawn. While most of the items are on the Sevi Islands, which if we have our single Grimer or even our single Voltorb, we wouldn't have access to because we would be stuck on the mainland, but we would have access to the underground passages. Mount Moon we actually wouldn't have access to because we have nothing to use cut, but the underground passages we would. Unless, oh my god, I keep coming back to this video, but it's true, there is still a way to soft lock. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, I've been all over the place. I give up after this. I think I finally found a way to actually soft lock ourselves. What we need to do is everything from before, but we need to have already been to Cinnabar, fly there, and then release our fly Pokemon and have just Grimer. What's important is we cannot have beaten Blaine. If Blaine is undefeated, we just have a Grimer with Memento, and we've released all our Pokemon with HMs, there is no way to access the mainland and thus no recurring items. We can't get to Sevi Islands because we haven't beaten Blaine yet, and we can't beat a trainer because Grimer has Memento. After doing countless hours of research and testing everything, I do think we have finally solved this issue once and for good. We need the T because you can get into an absurd situation on Cinnabar Island where you actually can't progress anyway because, well, think about it. We have no money for Pokeballs. We have no way to win any battles. You're just trapped on Cinnabar with a Memento Grimer forever and ever and ever. So I feel like we've gone beyond the scope of this initial question, but if I'm wrong and there's actually a way out of this one, let me know. But as far as I can tell, no recurring items. Grimer can't learn Metronome. Even if it did, we just delete it and come back. There's no way to get to the mainland without Surf. We have done it. Sort of. Maybe. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this mess of a video. Thank you, Mystic Leviathan, for making me spend all this time figuring this out. And thank you, Picaspri, for doing this. If anyone can find a way out of it, probably you can. But until then, I'm going to go make some more videos. And don't forget to use my Raid Shadow Legends link in the description or scan my QR code to get insane bonuses for new players with 2 epic champions. Take care.